Just so you know.
We'll open up on Bill. Yeah, wait, what the hell happened? Like,
Wonder if I should unbutton this. Oh yeah, I know one thing I wanted to do.
Homicide with mafia ties without any actual proof it's tied to the mafia. I can't print it.
Harry, it's the truth.
I'm Lex Luthor, Bruno. There is no higher power in Metropolis.
They didn't understand what you are. They only saw the miracle. You gave them hope, Clark, so they reached out to you for help.
What am I gonna do? Everyone's gonna be looking for me now. How can I just be Clark Kent anymore?
Good morning, Inspector Thompson.
Mr. Luthor?
You won't be safe anywhere when I get out of here.
He's bleeding liquid, radioactive waste internally. Eventually, it'll reach his brain.
You rotten bastard! You don't give a damn, do you?
I spent 17 years and $3 billion researching and developing this failure. Your failure. Good day, Doctor.
If we get this story, this is gonna make our careers.
Whoa, slow down, Lois. Do you even have a plan?
Don't be ridiculous. Most corpus across town. And of course I have a plan. I'll just let you know as soon as I come up with it.
Okay, somebody talk to me. What about you, big guy?
Inspector, this is Superman, the one who saved me.
Superman. Nice pajamas.
For the love of Christ, what's wrong with you?
What's wrong with me? You did this to me! You!
Give you life!
Inspector, I have to leave.
Now, you just wait a minute. I still have some questions I want answered.
My apologies, sir. There's an emergency. I'll see you soon, Miss Lane.
You're nothing but a fascist with a big red flag. Who's your tailor? Ava Braun?
I don't understand. You always taught me to hide my power.
Ready?
Okay.
Near the end of World War II, the Allied forces discovered a plot that could tip the balance of the war in the Axis' favor.
These, gentlemen, are your targets. SS General Marcus, along with Dr. Lawson, have developed a serum.
Now, there is only one opportunity to stop it. A daring raid behind enemy lines.
That's why, unfortunately, you guys have got to do the search and rescue mission.
This team of highly trained specialists will have to put aside personal differences for the good of the mission.
No, just wait. I was assigned this job because I was at the
It is a race against the clock to prevent an army of the undead from overrunning the Eastern Front. Uber Zombie Frau, Summer 2015.
Take them down?
No, we don't want to alert the Germans from here. All right, let's move out.
I know what you're thinking, Carl. These guys are crazy. But have you ever been married, Carl? After a while, the sex gets pretty boring. She says my penis doesn't do it for her anymore. Do you know how that makes a man
More, Jack. More! Cut off his hand. And then
When this is over, I'm gonna make you scream. Don't worry, Carl. It's only sex.
And here we are at FilmSpeak again, sitting here about to get ready to talk to Brian and Barbara. Brian is a frequent guest on the show. He's been on a couple of times. Thank you for coming back.
Always a pleasure.
Please introduce your lovely compatriot.
This is Barbara O'Connor.
It's great to meet you. It's nice to be on the show finally.
Great to have you on the show finally. And we last time you were on with Mark Stacy White, you guys were talking about your passion project, Superman Year One.
Still passionately working on it.
Still passionately working on it. Well, you know, that's a lot of people don't realize how long it can take to put a film project together.
Especially one with no money attached to it initially at all. It takes its toll on everybody. You start calling in favors and
yeah, you spend a lot of time on your knees trying to work it. Yeah, I understand that. Well, you know, you just said a big part of it. When you're a filmmaker in this area with no money, it's all about favors.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I would be happy to come, you know, and work on your production. Would you please help me with this, with my production?
Exactly.
And there's a lot of it. And, you know, and having
community.
A community of filmmakers, having friends you can call on.
Exactly.
You know?
And actually having some people that are sort of good at it. It's always nice.
Good at it. The biggest part is passion, though.
Oh yeah.
You have to have passion in what you're doing, because if you don't, you're not going to make it through to completion. You know, you have to want it bad enough, because there are going to be so many obstacles thrown in your way to keep you from finishing something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how has the production been going?
Well, we're gearing back up. Kind of a brutal winter put us on hold a little bit. We originally were gonna try to have the movie done well before the winter even really hit, and I ended up pushing it back. We kind of recast a couple of parts and did a little rewriting. Gearing back up to start actually filming sometime in the next 2 months, and we're gonna try to have it out by the end of the summer, before the fall, hopefully, maybe the fall.
How long of a film are you looking at?
It's probably going to be about 45 minutes. It's basically going to be like a pilot episode for a TV show. You could kind of look at it like that, and it would be a two-parter, essentially. So there's like a second half of the story that we'll hopefully get to do someday.
Oh, so you're going to end on a cliffhanger.
Total cliffhanger.
Total cliffhanger. So
be cool.
You're doing more of a throwback to the old George Reeves kind of style.
Even the Kirk
Superman
Allen.
TV show. Kirk Allen from the
predating, yeah.
From the old serials.
Just to give it, yeah, like that, you know, girl stuck on the railroad tracks, and then, you know, will he get there in time and all that, and have him, you know, swoop in and do stuff. It's weird though, because it's like we're doing Superman Origins, essentially. We're basically rebooting a movie everybody's seen and heard a million times, so we're just trying to kind of like put our own spin on it. There's certain things that you kind of have to hit, and I'm hoping that we can just kind of breeze through some of it and then show you something you haven't really seen before. That's where we're going to shine, you know.
That would be kind of nice, getting a little hook, exposing something, maybe a Superman's character that hasn't been done before.
We definitely dig pretty deep. There's going to be some stuff in there that I've never seen before. I'm actually really excited. I was going through lines and we're preparing and rehearsing and everything, and I started doing this one scene, and it actually got me to a place I haven't been in a long time. I haven't had to do any acting like that in a long time. Mostly it's like straight-faced, and that's how Superman, he's kind of stoic and, you know, not broken at all.
Yeah.
And this was kind of like a rare moment for him, and it was just kind of cool. It was like, man, it really pushed me to like get somewhere, and like the first time I did it, I watched it, and I'm like, no, that's horrible.
Well, that's nice.
Do it again.
That's nice you're able to push yourself like that, though.
It's fun. And if I don't have a part in something else that's pushing me, then it's like, that's the best place I can do it, because then I'm going to be my own worst critic the whole time, and just make sure that when it's finally seen, it's going to be epic.
Yeah.
And just
most
on point.
Excellent. Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm hoping
Heroic.
for.
It's a superhero film.
Yeah.
Now, Barbara, you're involved in casting this project, aren't you?
Yes, I'm playing as Lois Lane.
Lois Lane. You can't get more classic than that.
I know, the classic fangirl of the very beginning of superheroes.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And you know, I think even when you go back to the earlier days of Lois Lane and Superman, I think she was an archetype that helped establish, like later on, the powerful woman. You know, she was single, she was self-made, and she was determined in a man's world.
Yes, yet sensitive.
Yes. But you know, and that goes back to the 40s and 50s and how they portrayed her. And that was groundbreaking for the time. It's kind of funny how arts and culture can always be ahead of that curve than real society. Now, how did you approach how you're going to portray this character? Did you research into like the old Superman stuff?
Well, I've watched the Christopher Reeves movies with Margot Kidder.
Yeah.
And the acting part that I love the most of her is when she first sees Superman. She's literally starstruck, like, you know, butterflies in her stomach.
Yeah.
But mostly in his movie, I will be portraying like Terry Hatcher and Lois and Clark.
Ah, gotcha, gotcha. So you guys are kind of mixing genres and influences.
Yes.
Well, that's right. You have a lot to take from that.
A lot of lore, a lot of canon. I would say this movie, it was originally going to be kind of like its own thing, how Man of Steel is, kind of complete reboot.
Yeah.
And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, you know, I'm not really trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're just doing Superman.
Yeah.
So it's like you can only do so much. I want to hark back to like that fun, adventurous Saturday morning cartoon, you know, swooping in, saving the day, flying off after waving goodbye, and just kind of like, but not comical and not campy.
Well, if you do a second one, well, when the time comes for the sequel, we have to use the Cincinnati terminal as the Hall of Justice.
Oh, it's going to be in it. I'm definitely using it for episode 1.
I have always wanted to use that. Just
The
for
Hall
me
of
to
Justice
for me to
will-
be
will
off
be featured.
off camera, just going meanwhile at the Hall of Justice would just be fabulous because it looks like the Hall of Justice.
Well, and that's the thing. We're shooting in Cincinnati, we're shooting in Dayton, we might even go all the way up to Columbus. It just depends on the buildings. And Metropolis traditionally has had kind of like a unique look to it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of unique buildings that I want to make sure I kind of showcase, just so that when you watch it, it's like, uniquely Cincinnati or uniquely Dayton, but it's also
Metropolis.
Very much the architecture and everything, and just kind of like an amalgam. I mean, it's a movie.
I know some spots in Dayton if you're trying to capture kind of a 1930s look. To
Some
the
Art
film.
Deco?
I know where there's some original blocks, which are still, the businesses from the 1930s.
We may have to
the shop
go
fronts.
venture around today after the show and take the tour.
Absolutely. Now, you're kind of new into filmmaking.
Well, I grew up on movies and artistic stuff, so being part of this community and meeting new people, meeting you the first time when I met him, it's fantastic meeting people who just appreciate the arts, and even though they don't have a lot of money, they go out of their way to just try their hardest to create what they want.
Yeah.
It's awesome, and I'm
telling
happy.
telling stories,
Yes.
which is the best part. And so, are you looking towards like more projects aside from Superman Year One?
I wouldn't mind doing more acting, but I would like to get to know more people in the community to see if I can publish my comic book writing.
Oh, sweet. There are some people out there who are involved in that. So, so is that where you feel your strongest is in writing?
Yes, comic book writing.
Comic book writing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good to know. So not only is she an actress, but she writes comic books. So if anybody in this show can give a kick towards that department, definitely get on that. I'd love to see some of your work then too. See, now you have me curious. That is the best thing about this show, because now I'm like, well, I got to read her comic books now.
I'll tell you later some ideas.
I will have to check those out. That would be wonderful. Well, thank you guys very much. Where can we find out more information? I know Superman Year One, you can find it on Facebook.
It's pretty much our primary page right now.
Is that your primary page? So look it up. You can find out information about filming, about release dates, what's coming up for Superman Year One, all on that page.
Yeah, we're taking all comers. Anybody that wants to be involved can send us a message on there. We'll get back to you if we can, and we're not going to have room for everybody that comes out, but we will try to accommodate anybody that wants to help. So,
if anything, just
it's a community project. So.
It's a community project. Get on the Superman Year One site just to let them know that you're paying attention, because I tell you what, as an artist, that can help drive you the most, is knowing that somebody else wants to see your project. And who doesn't care about Superman? I mean, I kind of prefer Batman just maybe a little bit more, but Superman's cool too.
I prefer Batman.
Batman's a lot more expensive to shoot.
Batman is a lot more expensive to shoot.
You got to have a Batmobile.
Got to have a Batmobile
and a rich friend with a really cool mansion.
Well, when you talk about if you wanted to do a Batman Year One, you could do the throwback to the original Batman, who just ran around with a Luger gun.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't have the belt. He didn't have all the fancy cars and machinery.
Had the really creepy looking mask.
The real creepy mask.
Ears that came out like this.
And he just shot bad guys. You know?
He was pretty kind of a ruthless, evil guy.
Yeah. That could be an interesting concept.
Would be. I always liked Frank Miller's Batman Year One.
That is my favorite.
And
Batman.
they did the animated film of it, which was pretty cool too.
Yeah. The Dark Knight Returns was changed my life, and I was 14 years old when that came out.
I actually just introduced her to that not too long ago. She had kind of looked at the comic book before, but she'd never seen the animated movie. So we watched both parts of it. She was
Frank Miller. When you talk comic books, Frank Miller's Ronin, which was a DC series he did back in 1984, and they're actually talking about turning it into a Netflix series right now.
That's cool.
It's a mix of sci-fi and samurais.
That's practically where it's at nowadays.
The Netflix Daredevil. I am so excited
I'm
about
excited
Daredevil
about
coming
that.
out.
It's kind of an exciting time period for superhero stuff in general. They got all kinds of stuff all over
I've been waiting
the
for
networks
this
and everywhere. It's just like...
Since I started reading comic books, like seriously, 1981, I've been waiting for this age to come. where people took comic books seriously.
Yeah,
You know, when I was a kid, we had the Amazing Spider-Man TV show.
Yeah, or like the Hulk.
It was crap. Okay, Incredible Hulk wasn't crap.
It was a pretty serious show.
Yeah.
Almost too serious.
It was the approach that they took to it that made it okay.
Well, yeah, you take the material seriously, you have respect for what you're doing, and you don't try to be cooler than the material. That's what I've kind of noticed. As long as you're not too cool for the material, then
that is a heck of a point.
You know, like,
well, I guess on that note, don't be cooler than your material, and come back, and Barbara and Brian are going to join me to talk about Superman 2, some Christopher Reeve classics going on. Not that junk with Richard Pryor, Superman 3, Superman 2. Join us here in a second.
And now it's time for the Cafe 125 show.
Are you happy with that? Does that sound good? 2, 1.
DATV, how we doing? Great. Great. Love the energy. This is going to be your African-American part of the show. So you guys can hide your purses, do whatever you need to do. That's fine. Just to let you guys know a little bit about myself. I'm black, but I'm not, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, not like aggressive. Get on the ground, give me your money. I'm not like that black. I'm more of the, I'll steal your purse, go away, bring it back, and ask for a reward. You know what I mean? Like that. You know, I grew up in the suburbs, so I know how to swim. You know what I mean? Like that. That works out well. I'm what you would call cul-de-sac black, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, you guys will let me house sit, things like that. I can walk your dog, feed your cat. You know, that's kind of how I roll. Just started dating again. Really cool. Not really. Been on a few dating websites. My favorite was blackpeoplemeet.com. I know what you guys are thinking standard, but there's a twist. If you guys do go to blackpeoplemeet.com, make sure you spell it M-E-E-T. Yeah. Yeah. For those of you that went to community college, don't spell it M-E-A-T. It's a different type of meat. But yeah, I was on blackpeoplemeet.com, and I found my girlfriend, which is awesome because she's white. What's the trick? It was a trick. I don't know how she got on there, but she made it through. But it's really cool. We get along really well. You know, I say really white words like skedaddle, which is one of my favorites. I love that word. I also say white words like ask. You know what I mean? For those of you that didn't get that, I'm going to ask y'all a few questions after the show. So get that going. She took me home to meet her parents, which is a really fun experience. She's from a little podunk town called Wapakoneta. And basically, when we pulled off the highway, I doubled the black population, which was awesome. Signs went off. They did a little dance and everything. We actually made the front page of the news, all right? There were 3 stories that happened that night. There was a murder, a meth lab blew up, and the interracial couple visiting. It was awesome. It's pretty weird. It's pretty weird. I'll tell you guys a little bit about myself. I have a few hobbies. Obviously, you know, what us people do. You know, I like to swim. You know, that's always fun. But one of my favorite hobbies is I like to call off work. It's a blast. It's one of my favorite things to do. If you guys ever want to raise the stake, call off work at a place you don't work at. There is a James at Bed Bath & Beyond that currently hates me right now as we speak. It's weird. Called in, Bed Bath & Beyond, Beaver Creek. This is James. How can I help you? I'm like, yeah, James, I'm not going to make it into work today. He's like, oh, okay, well, who is this? Yeah, this is Malcolm. You know, Malcolm from the back. He's like, Malcolm. Hey, Malcolm, you can't call off again. And I'm like, oh. There's really a Malcolm that works here. So, folks, I have 2 options to make. I can either A, hang up the phone, or B, get some Malcolm fired. So I did the polite thing to do, and I decided that Malcolm's working at Bed Bath & Beyond. He probably doesn't want this job. So then I say, yeah, you know, I got an appointment today. That's why I'm late. He's like, that's unacceptable, but what is your appointment? I was like, yeah, I got an appointment to check out my anal glaucoma. It's like, anal glaucoma, what's that? I don't see my ass coming into work today. And I hung up the phone and he got mad. That's been my time, guys. I'm Steve Mack. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming
Thank
on
you, sir.
today.
Appreciate you for having me.
Now, please tell our viewers where they might be able to find out some more information about you.
You can go to my Facebook page, Steve Mack Comedy. You can also find me on Twitter. All you have to do is search Steve Mack Comedy. On Instagram is Steve Mack Comedy as well.
Do you do shows all over Ohio?
All over. I traveled the U.S. I've done shows from California to Boston to Tampa.
Oh, nice. So you kept a busy man.
Busy man. My second portion actually will be aired on March 28th on Fox's show Live. So you guys have to check the local listings to check that out. It'll be on Fox.
Yeah, or by the time this comes out, maybe find it on the internet, because I'm sure by then the clip will also be on the internet.
That's true. It will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. You're a very funny man. I
Thank
greatly
you.
appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You guys, thank you.
I should be wearing the Superman costume for this segment. It's out there. Come back like...
5, 4, 3,
I wouldn't be able to keep my hands off you. Welcome back to Film Speak. We're sitting here with Brian and Barbara about to talk about Superman 2, my personal favorite Superman movie. Even though I had found out some information about it that kind of perturbs me, I did not know.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know, never a good thing. But we'll save that for a minute. Let's start with you, Brian. What are your feelings about Superman 2?
Epic.
That's enough. Okay, Barbara. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. Sorry.
Epic 80s awesomeness.
Epic 80s awesomeness. I can take that.
The quintessential way to start a comic book movie. It starts off right, man. It brings you in with the first movie. You got the 10-minute opening credit sequence, which, okay, whatever. But they give you flashbacks, excluding one certain character, I might add, but we'll get into that later. We're only praising the movie right now, right? Epic opening, though, how it just kind of like pulls you in. You got Clark walking in, and Perry White's like, oh, there's a bomb going off in Paris, and terrorists and all this, and oh, geez, you know, and he goes running out and rips the shirt open and goes flying off, and it's like, da, 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 you know, getting crazy, and then, like, that epic scene takes him 20 minutes to fly to Paris.
Yeah.
Literally on screen. But when he gets there, it's awesome, and they just have this great epic opening. And then, you know, they release the bad guys, and everything just kind of gets kicking. It's very different from the first movie, which is kind of like the slow burn. It's almost like a John Carpenter movie.
Yeah.
Very slow burn. You know, it takes an hour to get to Metropolis and see Superman for the first time, and, you know, makes you wait. And then it gives you the goods afterwards. And this movie, it's just like, bam, as soon as you start the credits, here he comes. He's flying off to go save Paris.
Yeah.
You know, and the Eiffel Tower and all that. It was a great movie. I love it.
And what are your feelings about Superman 2?
Same thing as he said. I love the honeymoon sequence as them disguised as married couple, and her trying to prove a point of that Clark Kent is Superman. She's finally figuring out as a journalist, you know, doesn't let anything pass her by, and, you know, falls in the river, and he manages not to reveal himself except just break off a branch with his heat vision. But the sudden part is the fact he falls into the fire and his hand gets in it, and all of a sudden it's just like, yep, I'm screwed. But the fact that he loves Lois Lane so much of giving up his powers, it's a very, very powerful statement.
Yeah, yeah, almost willing to emasculate himself for, you know, the love of this woman, giving up all the power that he has in the world.
Yeah.
Which does say a lot. If you're able to give up the world for somebody, there's a lot to be said for that.
Absolutely.
I always love when he gets his power back, because, you know, when he loses his power, the spoilers, by the way.
Spoiler alert.
You know, when he loses his power and they go to the diner and he gets his butt kicked. I remember as a kid, one of my favorite moments is when he goes back to the place and beats the guy up, and he's Superman, and everybody's like looking at him like, he's like, nah, I've been working out. Which is kind of funny. If you watch Christopher Reeve through the movie, he was working out, and by the end of filming, he is so much bigger than he was in the beginning of filming.
There's a funny story to that. it's because they actually stopped filming for a long period of time. They kind of pulled the Tom Hanks in Castaway. It was originally directed by Richard Donner, and then he got fired from the project, and they took some time off, and when they went back, he looks different in the movie. It works, though. It really does like help sell his different look when he changes and everything. But yeah, it's kind of weird.
Brian brought up an interesting point. They fired Richard Donner. Bought this director in Leicester. Now here's the thing.
He did the Three Musketeers movie.
Everybody hated the new director.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so all the segments you've seen of Gene Hackman were filmed with the Richard Donner section. They had to get a Gene Hackman impersonator to come in to fill in other spots that the new director needed him in.
And they dropped Marlon Brando completely from the movie.
Marlon Brando wouldn't work with the new guy. Ned Beatty wouldn't work with the new guy. All his stuff had to be added in from the first movie. They edited parts in from the first movie.
Well, they filmed them simultaneously. They were filming 1 and 2 back to back.
Because the thing that was supposed to release the 3 captive Kryptonians was the nuclear bomb from the first one. But then they changed it to some BS thing in Paris.
After they fired Richard Donner, they changed the original ending of the first movie. He never turned back time in the first movie. That was supposed to be for the second movie. Or something. I don't know exactly how that worked out. I think that's what it was going to be, though. They were going to have him spin back time at the end of the second movie. Yeah. Because in the Richard Donner cut, that's what he does. And in the first movie, basically the first movie was going to end after he sends the rocket out into space. He saves everybody, and then that releases the 3 prisoners out in the nuclear
General
explosion.
Zod.
They added all that stuff with Paris and the hydrogen bomb and all that after Richard Donner got fired. That was a reshoot, and that's what ends up freeing the prisoners at the beginning of the theatrical cut. But in the Richard Donner cut, it's the end of the first movie.
And
it's kind of complicated, but
it's amazing
cool.
through all that turbulence that it ends up being my favorite Superman movie.
It's really cool.
It is really cool. It has the best fight scenes, because that's what I was waiting for, like you really didn't see in the first Superman movie, was the super fights.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know, and then
absolutely.
And then in the second one, you got it in spades. And we were talking about this during the break. My only beef with the Superman movie is when he peels the S off his chest and throws it and wraps up the guy. That was the only time I'm like, WTF, Gary, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, it was
it just doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, no sense whatsoever. I can buy everything else. I can buy the green crystal he gets his powers back from. I can buy him going into the cube and reversing it somehow, and everybody outside loses their powers.
Yeah, except for him.
Yeah, except for him. I can buy all that. I can set aside, any questions I have. It's that darn S. Kills me every time. Every time I see it, I'm just like, and, I don't know. I don't know what to do about that.
You kind of just want to close your eyes and just listen to the movie at that point. Let it play for a second. Open your eyes again. Okay, it's over.
Well, that part's past.
What's really interesting about all the versions of that movie, though, is the gripe that everybody made about Man of Steel's ending with Superman killing General Zod. Spoiler alert again. He kills General Zod in Superman 2.
Yeah.
He breaks his hand, pretty brutally, picks him up, throws him up against a wall, and then he just falls into an abyss. Yeah, and he's gone. And Lois Lane turns around and punches the girl and kills her, and the other one kills himself, and it's like...
A little anticlimactic.
It's kind of totally 80s. It's kind of like your quintessential 80s kids movie. It's like the Goonies, everybody's running around cussing and sexual innuendos. Hell, Superman and Lois have sex in that movie. You know what I mean? That's a kids movie.
Yeah, no doubt.
But that was the 80s. We had fun in the 80s.
And then, of course, in the third one, they bring in Richard Pryor. So,
whole different can of worms. I like that movie though. It's charming. I like the fight with Christopher Reeve versus Christopher Reeve.
You know what? The third one,
Junkyard Dog.
The third one does kind of have its charm.
It's got its moments, and
it's got its
Lana
moments. Lang. But number 4.
No offense, sweetie.
Number 4 did not need to be made.
No. But that was a passion project.
It was.
It
Well,
was, it was
they-
Christopher Reeve's movie, but they didn't have the budget. Richard Donner was supposed to come back and direct that.
It was kind of.
They wouldn't pay him enough, so he said no.
The same thing happened with Superman 4 that happened with Star Trek 5 because it was going on during the writer's strike.
Mhm.
And because the writer's strike was happening, Paramount and the other studios were refusing to put a lot of money into projects. Because like Star Trek 5 ended up getting a quarter of the budget they were supposed to have. So even though I used to blame William Shatner for years that it was his fault that that sucked, it turned out I was kind of wrong.
Yeah.
It was the studio's
Hands are
fault.
tied.
Yeah,
What can
exactly.
you do, you know?
But I have problems with the new Superman movies because I look at them and I'm just like, it's not Christopher Reeve.
It looks like him.
Kind of looks like him.
Kind of looks like him. Doesn't sound like him. He's very,
Doesn't sound like
very,
him a
very
bit.
deep voice.
Christopher Reeve nailed that
Get a
farm
twinkle in his
boy
eye.
doing good. Yeah, he had those qualities that we looked for in Superman. Oh man, I remember around the time that Superman 2 came out, and the name of the movie eludes me, but Christopher Reeve did this film where he played a gay man, a gay priest. And boy, did people freak out because Superman could not be getting butt injections.
Oh, no, no, no.
They just couldn't deal with that.
No, not-
And I felt bad for Christopher Reeve even at the time because that means that he was in a mold that as an actor he wouldn't be able to break out.
Well, you know, there's an actor that tried out for Superman Returns and all the other Superman movies as of the 2000s who pretty much looks exactly like Henry Cavill in Man of Steel. And he's actually American, doesn't have to do an American accent, but they wouldn't cast him because he's gay.
See, and that's just awful.
That's terrible. I mean, I can understand, I guess, to an extent, whatever, marketing, I guess that's harder for them somehow.
I felt bad for
I don't know.
Brandon Routh because I felt like
He got shafted.
He should have been a great Superman, but the movie that was around him was crap.
They were trying to do a little bit too much of an homage and
To
not,
Christopher Reeve.
and not do anything big and epic with it.
Yeah.
They had all the money and all the time to do the effects, these modern cool effects.
The only
and
part I liked
fell
about that
short.
Superman movie was Kevin Spacey.
He was so
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, wasn't he great?
Oh, yeah, he was fantastic.
He nailed Lex Luthor.
Oh, yes.
But everything else around it, yeah, I was disappointed.
You've heard about the new Lex Luthor in The Man of Steel.
Yeah.
What's
the
his
sequel.
Yeah.
The Batman versus Superman. Lex
Batman
Luthor.
versus Superman.
Bryan
Jesse Eisenberg.
Cranston should have been Lex Luthor.
She's very adamant about this. She loves
Yes.
Breaking Bad, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would have made a great Lex Luthor.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I have to say that I am more excited about Suicide Squad than I am about Batman versus
We get a
Superman.
new Joker.
Yeah, well, you look who they got.
Somebody
Jared Leto, he's a
that's-
Jared
great
Leto
actor.
to play.
Yes.
Yeah, he is somebody who is up there to be able to play that character.
And he gets into his characters very, very deep.
Well, I remember when the Dark Knight Returns was coming out, they had mentioned Daniel Day-Lewis, who was friends with Heath Ledger, had said, if you want somebody to play the Joker for a small part, I'd be willing to do that for Heath. And I thought at the time, well, Daniel Day-Lewis could play anything, because he's freaking Daniel Day-Lewis.
He could play a paper bag and get an Oscar.
And get an Oscar for it. So yeah, at that time, I was thinking if anybody was going to play the Joker, he would be a good choice. But
He would be a good choice. I would have never imagined that, but yeah.
Yeah, because he could. The man, when he dedicates himself
Total
to something,
transformation.
Yeah, he could do
Wow.
it. But Jared Leto, great choice. Anyway, Superman 2. If you haven't seen it, I would see it before you see any other recent Superman movie that's come out in the past 10 years, or will be coming out in the next 10. You know, go back to the 80s. It may be 80s. It may have cheesy 80s music. But it is a better Superman movie. Superman.
Yeah, you can fast forward through it a little bit, like 2 times or whatever, and the fight scenes all move a lot faster. It's just as cool as anything that comes out now. They just didn't have the technology.
They just didn't have the technology.
They had the heart, though.
You see, and then that's where they succeeded, because they put better acting, better heart, more
Everything
connection
looks
to it.
pretty now, and it's well edited, but it's not nearly as gripping as some of that older stuff.
And to touch on this, some of my favorite songs are about Superman. You have I Am Superman, the REM did a cover of. The Spin Doctors, Jimmy Olsen Blues, which I think is a
Pocket Full
fabulous-
of Kryptonite.
Pocket Full of Kryptonite,
Yep, good
great song. Superman and Green Lantern, Have Nothing on Me. Can't remember the name of that song.
I always liked Eminem.
Eminem?
I
Yeah.
Can't Be Your Superman. That's pretty epic.
So I was just trying to demonstrate the ways that Superman has infected all levels of our pop
aspects
culture.
of culture. He's he's kind of like Bruce Lee.
I think he is more recognizable than Jesus Christ.
You can take that damn symbol anywhere.
And people know what it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it traverses society, religions.
And nobody hates him other than, like, you know, Marvel fans. Nobody really hates the character when you see him. You know, if you mention him, it's.
I'm a Marvel guy. What can I say?
I am too.
Hey, I like Marvel as well. I love this new wave of. I think they have a great grip on their universe, especially cinematically.
I used to have Spider-Man versus Superman Marvel DC crossover comic. That was
cool.
Just brilliant. Lex Luthor put kryptonite in Spider-Man's blood.
Have you ever read Batman versus Punisher: Lake of Fire?
Yes.
Love that story.
That was a great story.
Such a great story.
And what a great team up. I mean, you talk about two anti-heroes kicking butt. You know what? I'm just going to end this segment here because we could probably go on for another half hour talking about comics and crap.
We're going to talk about this on the way out the
We're just
door.
going to keep going. You guys fade out. We're just going to keep talking. We'll see you later on Film Speak. Thank you very much for joining us. You guys have a great day. That was awesome. Thank you, guys.
No problem. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Cute. One more. Cul-de-sac black. That was